In today's video, we're going to talk about the sell the Snyderverse to Netflix hashtag that, to my surprise, Forbes, the infamous Forbes website, has picked it up. Then a load of cookie cutter websites like the direct.com, etc., have picked it up, Screen Rant, etc. But more to my surprise is that people actually think this is viable. It's not legally viable. Stop comparing it to Spider-Man being owned by Sony and then appearing in the MCU. That's a completely different situation. So I will address everything and I will give my thoughts. I'm going to try and be neutral because, as you know, I am the founding father. I was the first YouTube channel to tell you guys that Zack Snyder's Justice League would be coming to HBO Max. So I feel like I have to have a say, but please watch the whole video, listen to the whole video before you say I'm a Zack Snyder fanboy, because trust me, I'm nowhere near that. Yes, I do want Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3. Yes, I would like to see a Ben Affleck movie where he gets to slay and gets to fight Joe Manganiello Deathstroke. Is it likely to happen? Sadly, no. So, yo, what is freaking good, YouTube? Warstu here. If you are new around it, make sure to subscribe to never miss any of the Marvel, DC, pop culture-based content that we try to do on the daily basis. If you could, subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on, and let me know down below, do you think this sell the Snyderverse to Netflix is even possible? To be honest, Netflix wouldn't even be interested. Yes, we understand they've got a really good relationship with Zack Snyder because the Planet of Dead stuff he's done and the Rebel Moon stuff he's doing. But that doesn't mean that Netflix is going to splash out hundreds of millions of dollars to buy something they have no chance buying because, careful for spoilers, the Snyderverse isn't an IP. The DCEU isn't an IP. It's the individual characters that is the intellectual property. Batman, Superman, or Wonder Woman, etc. And also, if you could, check us out on Instagram at Warstu to see the beautiful face behind the beautiful voice, and also check us out on Twitter, WarstuG, because I ask questions over there an awful lot. So, what I find really interesting and really ridiculous about this is, for some reason, the fire James Gunn, fire Pete Safran kind of hashtags have stopped. And all of a sudden, the fandom wants to become this positive motion where all of a sudden they just want the Snyderverse to go to Netflix. It's not that simple. Legally, this will never happen. But people are like, yeah, but David Zaslav with Warner Bros. Discovery, they're in $47 billion of debt. They are. So that's why they are trying to make a new universe under the watchful eye of James Gunn and the silent partner, Pete Safran. Now, I don't think a lot of people in the Snyderverse understand that the intellectual property, the Snyderverse, that's just a storyline, okay? The intellectual property is the individual characters who make up said story. So when people will be like, yeah, just sell the Snyderverse rights to Netflix, you can literally make any deal. Interesting. The problem is people keep spouting facts without realistically having any clue what they're on about. Amazon now has the rights to Lord of the Rings. That's how they did the Power series. They don't actually have the rights to Lord of the Rings. Look into it. They have some of the rights to Lord of the Rings. Why do you think Power of Rings was nowhere near on the same level as Lord of the Rings, even though Amazon had infinite money at their disposal? This is not a shut and closed case where people think, oh yeah, they can just buy the Snyderverse and Netflix will restore everything. There's no chance of this happening. There's no chance of this happening. This would be like Kevin Feige going to David Zaslav, yo, David Zaslav, I'm going to give you access to all the Avengers so you can do an Avengers versus Justice League movie. That is the comparison I'm making here. And I do see the people going, yeah, but Spider-Man No Way Home and MCU and Marvel get the access to Spider-Man when it's owned by Sony Pictures. Completely different scenario. And I know people are going to go, yeah, but you're just pushing the narrative you want. If I thought the Snyderverse was going to be restored like I said it was going to be, and I was not wrong, I could not foresee James Gunn and Pete Safran scrapping everything. No one could foresee that. No industry insider, no Twitter influencer or scooper, whatever they want to call themselves. No one could forecast or foreshadow what was to happen when Warner Bros. Discovery took over Warner Bros. Essentially. Even though I said a bunch of stuff, and I was right, Ben Affleck appears in the Flash movie. Henry Cavill is supposed to appear in the Flash movie, even if they do cut his cameo. But it is absolutely ludicrous. It's absolutely insane that people think just because Snyder's over at Netflix that they're going to buy the Snyderverse. The Snyderverse isn't IP. I don't understand how hard this is for people to understand this. And what? You think because Zack Snyder liked a post on Vero that means it's confirmed and it's verified? And you think because there's so much traffic, of course there is going to be traffic because all the Snyderverse fans are hashtagging sell Zack Snyder just leaked to Netflix. So of course you're going to cause a lot of metrics and a lot of data and a lot of engagement. But is that really going to carry over to people buying things? I don't think so. And I hate to use this excuse and I hate to use this reasoning, but if you really wanted the Snyderverse to be restored, every Snyderverse fan should have went out and watched Black Adam because Henry Cavill, it was in that movie. That movie should have made so much more money if Henry Cavill Superman has the buying power, has the pulling power that a lot of these people seem to think. And yes, I see the narrative. Money talks. Money does talk. Netflix is losing. It's hemorrhaging subscribers. Netflix is cutting down on production costs. So you think they're just going to go out and buy the IPs behind some of DC's greatest characters? Do you realize how much it would cost Netflix to buy Batman, to buy Superman, to buy Wonder Woman, etc.? It's absolutely ridiculous. It's ludicrous that I have to even address this because, yeah, sure, bro, I really do want to see Darkseid ready the Armada. I really want to see the old ways, but people using stuff like, oh, yeah, the Spider-Man deal, that means Netflix can buy it. So let me get this straight. This might be a long video. So you think there's going to be the Snyderverse restored on Netflix, then James Gunn and Pete Safran are going to use the exact same characters on their variation for theatrical releases. No, if the Snyderverse gets restored, it will get restored on HBO Max. And that is the only way it gets restored. And who decides if and when it gets restored? David Zaslav, James Gunn, and Pete Safran. I really think this agenda that's being pushed out there has no metric, has no merit. But money, you can do anything with money. People buy rights all the time. Yeah, they do. But the best comparison I can say, this will be like Kevin Feige going, yeah, David Zaslav, you want to do an Avengers versus DC movie? We're going to give you the rights to every character we've got. Cool. And we'll just continue with Marvel Phase 5. Yeah, sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? It really does. And yes, Snyder did like a post, but that does not mean anything. Is Justice League 2 possible? No, it's not possible in the way you want it. The Ready the Armada, the Darkseid, the Nightmare. I am such a big fan of that universe. I want it more than most people want it. I told you we were getting Zack Snyder's variation of the movie. I told you a lot of stuff before other people started copying what I was saying. But in this case, it ain't happening. And just because Forbes picks up an article and starts to write about what people are wanting, can see where you're coming from. But Zack Snyder, he was in Teen Titans. That means this is real. It means it could happen. I get what you're saying. It's like, yeah, they can just license the characters out to Netflix and yeah, they can run that. And Zaslav can run his own stuff over at DC under the watchful eye of James Gunn and Pete Safran. What's going on here is a lot of people are taking this quote out of context. David Zaslav, strategic shift, licensing out Warner Bros. IP. The Moogle Open for Business mantra has led Warner Bros. Discovery to aggressively pursue right deals, even for its core brands. Do you really think you can compare the animation rights being shared, I guess you could say, onto other streaming platforms? Do you really think they're going to be like, yo, Amazon, you want Batman? 10 billion. Yo, Netflix, you want Henry Cavill Superman? 10 billion. Do you really think that's the case? Yes, I understand. Warner Bros. Discovery needs cash flow. I understand. Zaslav is more than willing to sell IP, but he's not going to sell Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. And then something that a lot of you people don't seem to understand is the Snyderverse isn't the Snyderverse unless you have every single actor, come back to play the hypothetical SnyderVerse on Netflix, which will never happen. If I'm wrong, I will eat my words. I'm not going to lie. But this sell the SnyderVerse to Netflix idea, it's just illogical. There's no logical there. There's no logical reasoning there. And I'm not just going to jump on it because people are like, yeah, we could get Wonder Woman 3, we could get the Batfleck movie, we could get Justice League 2, we could get Justice League 3. Okay, let's hypothetically run this fantasy dream in your head for a moment. What happens if Ben Affleck doesn't want to return? You can't do his movie then. You can't do Justice League 2 because without the nightmare Batman being Ben Affleck, none of this actually coexists. And I understand the agenda. Army of Dead, Rebel Moon are indicators that they like Zack Snyder. Yeah, but it would literally cost them so much money to do what you are saying. The intellectual property isn't the Snyderverse. It isn't the DCEU. It is the characters. They are not going to sell the characters. Oh, yeah, we could get Wonder Woman 3 in phase 2 of the Netflix Extended Universe. Some of you guys are going to a lot of trouble to make some of these artwork. And some of this artwork is pretty decent. I might even make the thumbnail. But realistically, it's not going to happen. Yeah, sure. I'm really sure Henry Cavill Superman would return to play Superman regardless to what company actually owns the rights to Superman. But I think the only way the Snyderverse gets sold off is to sell off the characters. And unless Warner Bros. Discovery is going to sell off the whole of the DC IP, it's not going to go anywhere. You ain't that guy. I get it. You're trying to be positive, but there is absolutely no way Warner Bros. Discovery is selling off their biggest IP they have. Yes, I want to see Nightmare. Yes, I want to see Darkseid Superman. I want to see Zack's visions. Yes, Zack liked to post, but realistically, this all means nothing. I get it. There is so many agendas on Twitter. I see it, and I've actually received so much hate because of my standpoint on this. But if you understood what IP was, then you realistically wouldn't even be questioning whether this was viable, if not, if it's possible. And yes, there are some really bad takes on this. If fans are asking WB to license not to sell DC characters and continue the Snyderverse, then it shouldn't be a problem for some real DC fans. Since they're getting their new rebooted universe, there's no harm. So let me get this straight. You don't want them to sell off the DC characters, but you want them to license the other versions of these characters. Interesting. So what you are saying is you want a multiverse where you have Elseworld stories, but you want the Snyderverse-based stories to be on Netflix. Interesting. Still, that does not make any logical sense. And time again, I keep seeing this. David Zaslav's strategic shift licenses out Warner Bros. IP treasure, Warner Bros. Discovery to aggressively pursue rights deals, even for its core brands. Do you really think that means sell off Batman? Let's sell off Superman. Like, sell them off, not license them, selling them off. To me, this whole agenda to sell the Snyderverse to Netflix makes no logical sense. It really doesn't. So you think DC is going to let Netflix have their own DC universe alongside DC Studios? So you think they're going to sell their biggest IPs, if not license their biggest IPs out to their biggest competitors? It almost makes me think that a lot of you people don't understand how business works. And just because Forbes picked up an article means nothing. Netflix wouldn't make the money back from it. As much as I like Zack Snyder's work, they really would not make their money back. So hundreds of millions of dollars just to buy the characters, hypothetically speaking. Then what? To make Justice League 2, $200 to $300 million plus marketing? Netflix doesn't market anything. And that's just for one project. Do you really think Netflix has that kind of money? I'm beyond confused why people think this is actually viable. And yeah, sure, I was the person who told you guys before anyone else that Zack Snyder's Justice League edit would be making its way to HBO Max. But it's like I've always said, restore the Snyderverse, it's not going to happen. The only way it happens is if David Zaslav or James Gunn or Pete Safran does a complete 360-degree turn and all of a sudden decides they want Zack Snyder Justice League 2 and 3, they want the Ben Affleck project, etc. Or if Warner Bros. Discovery completely sells off the whole of the DC franchise to Amazon or Netflix or somewhere else. So hypothetically, it would only work if DC was to sell off everything. They're not going to sell off everything. Yes, sure, there's loads of theories out there that Warner Bros. Discovery is going to sell the whole company off in a few years. Yeah, maybe. It's like I keep saying, maybe it could happen in 5 years' time, but it ain't going to happen anytime soon. And I don't understand this narrative, this movement. Let's all be positive and let's all make out the SnyderVerse can be restored, but it can't. Forbes covering it means nothing. And there's a post here, which is, let me just read it. Forbes picks up Zack Snyder's Justice League to Netflix. Though they underestimated our determination and motivation, they always do. It's safe to say Netflix will hear us. Well done. Everyone keep going. Websites pick up stories when for example, I did a plot leak video for Godzilla vs. Kong 2, and literally multiple websites picked that story up. It literally means nothing. If there's a miracle, and if the moon's aligned, and if somehow we are living in a multiversal, complex, parallel universe, and for some reason Warner Bros. Discovery sells off the whole of DC, it would probably be Amazon that buys it. Amazon is the only company that could realistically afford to buy DC properly. If they wanted to, that is. So like always, guys, I'm sorry to shatter your hopes and dreams, but sometimes people need to be told that the SnyderVerse is not going to Netflix. And if I'm wrong, which I know I'm not wrong, because they're not going to sell off their biggest properties to their competitors. Why? Because it makes no sense. They will be ruining the DC franchise by having the DC franchise on another streaming platform with a completely different universe and whatever. And the last thing I want to say, Netflix couldn't even afford it. So I've been your host, Warstu. This has been TED Talks on why Warner Bros. Discovery will never sell off their biggest properties ever. They're not selling off Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, etc. ever. So like always, guys, I'm sorry I had to destroy your hopes and dreams, but it ain't gonna happen. So like always, guys, check us out on Instagram at Warstu. Check us out on Twitter, WarstuG, and I'll catch you in another video, guys, very soon. Catch you later.